sure you're talking into your microphone right.
Okay, so Ian, our chair, and our vice chair are not here in person, so we need someone that's in person here to chair the meeting, so I'm happy to do that. The agenda is relatively short, but before we get going, I just have to read this governor's orders here. So pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body as well as members of the public may access this meeting in person or via virtual means. In-person attendance will be at the location above, and it is possible that all members of the public body may attend remotely, with in-person attendance consisting of members of the public. This meeting may be accessed remotely via Westborough TV's YouTube channel. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so in person attendance or by accessing the meeting remotely as noted above. Additionally, the meeting will be broadcast live in real time via Verizon Channel 28 and Charter Channel 192 or via Westborough TV's online platforms at westboroughTV.org and youtube.com/WestboroughTV. And just for the public's knowledge, this meeting is being recorded as well by Westborough TV. So it is 6:33, so we'll call the meeting to order. The next item is to approve the meeting minutes from July 12th. I sent those out yesterday or the day before. Hopefully you all received them. So if there's any discussion or comments.
No.
Okay. Matt or Maura?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So we just need a motion to approve those.
I'll motion for approval.
Second.
Okay. And then we have to do a roll call vote. So Brian?
White, yes.
O'Day, yes.
Yes.
Batesman, yes.
Kirkland, yes. Matt?
Yes.
Griffith, yes.
Okay, perfect, thanks. All right, so the next item is a discussion with the Westborough DPW department. We're here right now to just kind of talk us through the building assessment report, and I think they're happy to answer any questions we might have in regards to the state of the building, to help us make our decision about rehabbing the building or doing a new construction. So that's all you guys.
Okay, good evening. Chris Pants, Director of Public Works. This is Jim Stewart, our Fleet and Facilities Manager. Appreciate the invite to the meeting. We don't have anything prepared to speak about. I can talk about whatever you want, but I think the report that you've probably seen speaks for itself. It's been out there for quite a while. So I don't know if you have any specific questions, or I'm not really sure exactly what you want to talk about, but I'm ready to talk about, and so is Jim. Anything you'd like to?
I guess I'll start off. So,
Sure.
we've taken a tour of the building, and I think everybody's read it. I actually printed it actually to get a real grasp of it. What do you see as, not being in the buildings trade or anything like that, what do you see as the biggest issues that the current building has in store as far as rehab versus knockdown versus, building on the same footprint?
I don't think there's any question in my mind, and I think I can speak for Jim, but he can certainly make his own comments, that if the intended use for this building is going to be something similar to what it has been, or even something expanded beyond the scope of what it has been, it needs to be demolished and something new needs to be put in its place, whatever that ends up being.
Okay.
So we could probably go through this report and highlight a bunch of things, and the report does highlight many things, but it's a building that is being used for something that was not its intended purpose. I mean, it's a house, and you all went inside of it and saw it. Sorry, go ahead. Turn it back to you. So it's just, besides the fact that it wasn't built for what it's being used for, you probably saw some of the inside of it and the condition of things. And I mean, everything this report says, and we had conversations with individual that wrote the report, and while it's not specifically stated in here, because we didn't ask for this when we originally scoped the project, they've seen this in many other towns as well, and their recommendation to us, again, it's not written in here, so it's not written down, but was if you're going to do something substantial with that building, then it needs to be taken down and build something that's going to last you a long time, and you're not going to be continually piecemealing things over a long period of time. So,
So then, not to put words in your mouth, but since the scope was basically what's wrong with the building, it wasn't a solution that was put forward, but the gist of it is the solution is to knock down.
yeah, I mean, the origination of this was several years ago in terms of the intent to do an analysis of our buildings, and we started with 2. It took a while to get the project completed for a variety of reasons, but the intent was for us to look at a couple of buildings that we didn't have a really good feel for in terms of the condition of the building, and so this was a good way to give us a snapshot. We didn't really anticipate or really know what the intent for the building was, and so we were getting questions, the town staff, in terms of what do we want to do with this building, and we knew the tenant was moving out at some point, and so we had an opportunity potentially to do something, and we wanted to have a good understanding of what the condition of the building was, and so that's what we asked for, right? And so basically the report says, here's the things that might be wrong with it, and here's, if you did a 1-for-1 replacement, here's what it would cost to fix things. So that's what we got. The report came out, we had a series of meetings with select board and all that sort of thing, and ended up to where we are now, which is now you all, I think, are intended to make a recommendation on what the building should be used for, I think, and then maybe a recommendation as to whether it should be torn down or how it should be replaced. But we evolved to get to this point, and that wasn't necessarily where we started in terms of what we thought we were going to get, or where we wanted to go at the beginning of this assessment 2.5 years ago. So we didn't ask the question, that wasn't a question we asked, which is why it's not specifically stated in here. But this is what he does for his job, and we manage the buildings for the town, and I know for me, the recommendation would be, assuming we're using it for a similar purpose, tear it down, build something new. It's going to last you a long time, and it's not going to have continuous issues, and you're going to get what you want out of it, versus kind of making something work out of something that really wasn't designed to work the way we want it to work, if that makes sense.
It does.
So the, based off of our conversations, and then also based off of the surveys that we, received back from between the golfers and mostly from, the town residents, the focus of the facility will be for a golf pro shop to service the golf, restaurant, and function space. So that's basically the gist of what we're looking at in terms of using the space for. When they did that study, and the cost had come in around, it was like over $800,000. And that, could you just talk a little bit about what that entailed? Because it sounded, when I read it, maybe I'm reading into it, it was like, well, this is what we know, but if we dig further, it could be a lot worse than that, or it could cost a lot more. So did you have any kind of conversations around that at all with them?
Yeah, there's definitely more thorough reports that could be done. We chose an avenue that was a reasonable cost, we thought, for the town to give us a reasonable assessment of the report. So this report, when they went in there, they didn't put holes in walls and look behind things. They had to make some assumptions about, various aspects of the building. It was a visual. They walked through the building with the various trades and you know, where they could, they kind of peeked behind walls and found holes and things, but it wasn't, you know, every nook and cranny of the building. Because we didn't ask them to do that, because that's a whole lot more money, and we didn't see the need to do that. So,
But it was implied, or maybe I read into it, but they kind of implied, like, if you want to do a more thorough assessment, and if you start to look behind, you know, behind the curtains, it could be a lot uglier, more expensive.
yes. And
Is-
so we asked for this cursory condition assessment, and we also wanted some sort of output. So we wanted, if they went in the building and found, you know, needed a new roof and put a new floor and some new windows, we wanted that laid out over time. So if we wanted to pursue some sort of
Oh.
renovation, because it was in a condition that we thought was appropriate, or that was good enough that really we just needed to do some maintenance or some improvements over time, we wanted to have that laid out, because that's, at least that's for me, that's kind of what we thought was gonna be the outcome, is something along those lines. And so we wanted to be able to lay that out for the town and say, look, it's gonna cost this much money over several years, and we're gonna replace the windows and do all, you know, all these things. And so that number, that $800,000, if you look at the report, it's all broken out by kind of functional area, and it basically says a 1-for-1 replacement. So it's not, you know, if you want a new kitchen or you want to redesign the floor plan of your house, that's a different story. Like, that's knocking down walls, and that's not what it is. It's to replace this stove with a 2023 version, it's gonna cost, you know, this much money, and to replace these lights and redo the floor, and it's a 1-for-1 replacement, which I think we all know would not be exactly what happens, but we wanted something to give us a number we could work off of. So that 800,000 is, it's not really something we're gonna hang our hat on, it's just, it gives us a benchmark, you know, and I think whatever we would do is gonna be substantially more than that. But at least it gives us a start point for discussion, and sort of the start, it's a start point for a roadmap, essentially, if we were to pursue rehabilitation. But I'm just telling you, I don't think that makes any sense to
And
do
so the
that.
800,000 essentially is what you found, what you visually learned, not anything that's behind the walls when you tear
That's right.
down, reconfiguration,
That's right.
appliances.
And there's
and-
other things that were not quantified, such as American with Disabilities Act
Right.
requirements, code requirements. Those things were not all. So again, it was kind of a 1-for-1. Replace the floor. This is how much it costs. You know, put a new sink in, put a new refrigerator, whatever. 1-for-1. But when you start doing those things, you trigger certain thresholds, and then that requires you to do other things that they did not, they noted, but they didn't like list out those specific things that we would have to do. But there certainly would be things, because it's an old house, so there's certain things we'd have to do to upgrade it to, you know, codes that exist in 2023 and not 18, whatever the house was built.
I don't recall from the report, it's been a bit since I looked at it, but there was nothing in there specific to the cost of the lead removal, because they found it pretty much everywhere they looked, right? Was that part of the estimates? I cannot remember, I should have looked.
Did you say lead? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the lead removal.
Asbestos, there was asbestos.
I think
too.
there was, asbestos and lead. Was that part of the removal, estimate or estimate to
I
remediate?
don't. Do you remember if that was?
So there was one section of the basement that still had, a lot of the asbestos had already been remediated over the years, because they had done remodeling over the years. But there was one section of pipe that was still wrapped with asbestos. It wasn't a large amount, so I believe that is shown in this report, that cost, where it wasn't like the whole house had that. Now, as far as the lead paint goes,
Yeah.
I think it was noted, but I don't think that 800,000
Accounts
shows
for that,
the
right.
cost to remediate that. And like Chris said, most of the, if you were to start doing remodeling to that building, and it needs extensive remodeling,
Right.
you'd get to the threshold where now you have to bring things up to current code, especially ADA, sprinklers. There's no sprinklers in the building. It's a working restaurant. So the code level would take that 800,000, and just those items would bring it up
Right.
quite a bit. And then when you're all done, you still, like Chris said, you still have the exact same space and the same configuration, which really doesn't work for what the town is looking for.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
I had questions. You mentioned the historical side of the building. And from walking through it, it didn't seem that there's still a whole lot of the original structure. It seems that most of it has been kind of replaced over time. I think that looked like the fireplace maybe, and maybe some of the staircase, but not all. Do you know how much of the building, other than like the exterior and the beams, is still historical, is still part of the original building?
Well, at least the framing of the building, so it mentions in here, I believe, the balloon framing, so it's basically the studs go from the bottom floor to the top floor, which is
Right.
not the way we build things now. So unless you can speak to like specific things that might have been adjusted, the envelope of the building seems to be like, I wouldn't say it's original, but it's, part of the
Right.
history of it, but the
Yeah.
inside.
Like, I guess from my perspective, is the town losing much in the way of a historical building if we were to tear it down? Or is most of it, other than the beams and the things inside that we can't see and appreciate anyway, is the town losing anything really historically significant? Would you say?
I'm not I just speak for Public Works and kind of that perspective. I'll
Right.
give you my thought on it. I don't know of any historical significance of the building other than the fact that it's old.
Right.
And being old doesn't make it necessarily worth saving.
Worth keeping.
Certainly, if you were to build something new, you can make it look like whatever you want it to. So you could replicate to some degree the historic appearance
The
of the
look.
house now, or the
Okay.
building now. And so there are ways but it would be much more energy efficient. It would
Mhm.
be much simpler to maintain. It would probably be less expensive to maintain, at least initially. I mean, there's so many other benefits to just kind of starting over instead of trying to make something that doesn't work now
Yeah.
into something that works.
Yeah,
And-
I agree with you, and I just have heard people in town talking about, oh, I would hate to lose another historical building, but from my recollection, the one time we walked through, I didn't remember seeing a whole lot of original things, and I just wondered if you guys knew about how much.
If there was anything of significance they'd
Yeah.
want to save.
And yeah, anything.
There's
worth
been
saving.
many additions put on that, on the original building. The original building had a porch on the front, and now that's been enclosed and it's
Okay,
part of
right.
the house. So there's not, and like Chris said, it's an old building, it's been there, there was an old farmland there. But I don't believe it has any historic significance. I don't think that it's not in the historic district. I think the historic district ends somewhere as you go up West Main Street is where that district
Okay.
ends. Where in town, it's a different story.
Right.
So I can't, I haven't done the research to see if it is a
Right.
historic building, but nothing that I have seen points to that.
To us losing some
Yeah. I
historical.
think I
value.
heard that on one of the prior calls, that it was not part of there's no significance to maintain
Right.
the exterior or the interior, for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, my opinion, and somebody watching might shoot me down and prove me wrong, but it looks like an old building, and so that's kind of our feeling, is that it's
Mhm.
historical, but it's an old building.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of there might be some goodness from an old building, but there's a lot of other things that come along with an old building, and so, you can, if it's the look, that's easily, or not easily necessarily, but you can replicate that
Mhm.
and maintain that feel. And if there was something in the building as it exists now something unique about the building we wanted to keep and make that, like, incorporate that in, you can.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
people,
reclaiming maybe the bricks.
yeah, people do
or-
that all the time, right?
Yeah, the
Some old
beams.
wood or something that was like,
Yeah,
you could claim was a piece of the original, and it could be highlighted in the new building. I mean, there's ways
Yeah.
to do that.
Okay.
Which I know you know, but I'm just saying it, so.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Any
Matt?
questions for Matt or Maura on the phone?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you for coming.
No, I'm pretty good. I've had conversations about this with Jim in the past, so I agree 100%.
Same here.
So before we let you go, if I can maybe change the subject a little bit, one of the things I've been getting as feedback is, the time that it's going to take from when we present to, the day that somebody gets to walk in and use the place is probably going to be pretty extensive. And the feedback has been, why can't we still use some of the building? And I
Or
think
the
at
deck.
a prior meeting,
have said the deck.
it was, could we bring in food trucks? Could we, have entertainment out there? As the building stands now, is there anything to stop the town from saying, okay, we're gonna maybe wall off so you can't just go strolling through, but the bathrooms are accessible, the deck is there, we could have food trucks in for a golf event or just a town event?
One of the things I know for sure about the deck is it's not ADA compliant. There's no ramp, there's no way that you can get in there. So if you open it up to the public to use as a seating area, it has to be made ADA compliant, which would mean putting in a handicap, spending money to put on in a handicap ramp, so that was handicap accessible.
Okay.
I think a more general answer is, so, correct, and we'd have to do those things if potentially, but we can do anything we want if we want to spend the money on it. And so if there was an interest in having some aspect of that property, and I don't know if it's inside the building or next to it or whatever, making it functional for some period of time as a temporary or interim solution, that could be, I'm confident that could be figured out. I can't tell you what that would be specifically, but it's probably something more mobile, like what you're talking about, food trucks or something, and then we'd have to work out, if you wanted a common area for eating or something. I mean, I guess my point is there's things we could do. We just would need to determine what the scope is and what the intent we're trying to meet is, and then figure out what that means in terms of cost and time. If we wanted an interim solution, if you want to call it that, while
Right.
whatever's
Well, I
happening.
think it was
is
more
happening.
around waiting, kind of like waiting for Godot. By the time this thing gets built, it could be 2 years. So in the meantime, is there something we can do to use that building? Because it's just going to, just dilapidate even more and go into more disrepair while we're waiting. And based off of the input, a lot of people use that facility, between the golf and the restaurant. So we were just, kind of noodling that. Is there something you could do in the short term, besides trying to move the process faster?
I think if you're gonna bring in food trucks, you'd probably have to bring in porta potties or something like that, because to just access the building for the bathrooms, there's a lot more than that, because it would have to be cleaned up and
Right.
make
Right.
sure it goes out. So, I mean, food trucks and porta potties might be an idea, but building a handicap ramp just to have food trucks and some outings and, fixing up the bathrooms doesn't seem like a plausible solution. Seems easier to bring in porta potties.
Yeah,
I agree.
And it's a great point. We just would need to really define what we wanted and an assumption or an estimate of the time frame we'd want it. And then we'd have to determine the level of effort we want to put into it. But
Right.
opening up the building, that leads to things that was just said, which is now we got to maintain it and we have to do things that again, we can do anything if we want to pay for it, but it costs money. And so we have to keep things inspected and we have to keep things cleaned, and those just drive other things that we just need to understand are second, third order effects of opening the front door. And
Yeah.
so it's what are we looking for in terms of, we just want to be able to go to a truck and buy a hot dog, or we want to go to a building and be able to sit at a table and, I don't know, we would have to define that. Not me.
I don't think it's
but the group.
realistic to open the building.
Say that again,
What's
Maura?
I don't think it's realistic to open the building or even try to, because there's too much that goes into that.
Right.
If someone else wants to look at, that's probably not part of this committee's scope, but if the town decided they wanted to have food trucks there, you know, porta potties are reasonable price-wise, if those have to be there also. And then they could do it on a trial basis and see actually how many people do it and if it's worth the food trucks.
And just on the food truck issue, you have to schedule out 6 to 8 months
Right.
minimum to get a number of food trucks. When I talked to a few to try to get them in this year, you know, I talked to them in April and May, and they were already booked for the entire summer. So it's something that you have to very much plan for the future on.
And don't a lot of them
Maybe
have,
there's another way, maybe there's a way of speeding this process up instead of trying to find an interim
Right.
solution for
Well,
people sitting.
we
on-
discussed that at the last meeting as well, trying to accelerate that.
So I think
Right.
Christie took that as a follow-up to see if there was something we could do to try to get it, also for, up to town meeting
Right.
sooner. Oh, you were saying?
I was just saying, I think a lot of more reputable food trucks anyway, I think require a minimum spend as well. And then if you don't spend that minimum, then they charge you,
Yeah.
you know, the difference. So something to consider. But
Yeah.
I really like the food truck / porta potty idea if
And-
we can't move this along.
And also, we also will have a parking issue as well, which is a whole different conversation. Because even when the restaurant was going, on busy days, when the golf course was busy and the restaurant was busy, there were no parking spaces and people were parking next to the cart barn and in the maintenance building, and, you know, so that's a completely different aspect of this whole operational discussion.
Wouldn't we have that same issue though, even if we built a new restaurant?
Yeah,
Oh.
that issue's
Well,
always gonna be there.
Yeah, I think
And,
that's.
Yes,
and that's
well,
one of the
that's
reasons
what
we
I'm saying.
can't
That's something that we
expand
have
on what
to
we're doing,
keep
there's no
in
parking.
mind.
Except you got the truck taking up the parking lot.
But if the
Well, they had-
trucks
they had a
can come
trailer
into the,
taking up the parking
Yeah,
can
they
the-
did.
can the
That
trucks come
whole-
onto the
that whole
grass?
lane.
Is
Yeah,
that,
there's nowhere for the trucks to pull onto the golf course.
so they would have to be in the parking lot consuming spaces?
Well, we
Yes.
just had a food truck this spring. I mean, we had one, and we had it parked. It wasn't in parking
Civic had a
space.
trailer there for,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
since
freezer, yeah.
the issue first, whatever the issue, you
And
know.
I think Matt and I have talked about that when we were talking about, like, you know, when if this building is, whatever happens, it gets torn down, rehab, we would have a trailer there so we could run the golf operation and, you know, talking about a food truck and definitely bathrooms. So I think this is all stuff Matt and I have talked about and realized it would have to be done. And I think, I don't know, we're prepared to do that.
Oh yeah, the golf is easy. All I need is a phone and an internet connection, and I'm good.
Yeah, and again, this is really not, it's
It's-
more of
yeah.
a kind of a what-if scenario, kind
Yeah.
of trying to think creatively in the interim, but it's really not part of our scope,
Right,
yeah,
I agree. But to Brian's point, it's something I hear all the time.
yeah.
Why can't we get food trucks? Something simple, you know?
Or if people aren't using the golf course, we could move it downtown, you know, over by,
Bay State Commons?
yeah,
Yeah, what's the goal of it? Is it
Yeah.
for the golfers, or is it for the community as like a revenue opportunity, right?
Right.
It's probably the
Yeah.
former.
yeah.
And I think people like the views that the golf course
Yeah.
offers.
Yeah, it's
They
gorgeous.
like the location, that kind of gave
Better
an
than a parking lot.
ambiance to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Better, yeah.
Nope.
I
I was gonna
think
say,
that's it,
anything
guys.
else? for
No,
them?
it's pretty black and white, I think. I think it confirms pretty much what we had discussed last week in terms of where our headset was as well. But we wanted to just get, you know, enlightened by your insights.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much for
Okay.
coming.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so that was the main agenda topic. The next thing is just the next meeting agenda topics, what we want to accomplish next time. And I don't think we didn't set a date too, so we could do that as well.
Right, but I thought Christie was going to check to see if there was something we could do about trying to get on the town meeting agenda for October, correct?
Was it October, or do we think March?
The 12th is the next meeting, right?
I'll have to go back.
September 12th?
Do we have that set? Because I didn't post it. I can go back in my notes, but if September 12th is when we want to meet, that's fine.
I think we
If we're
wanted,
trying to get it to town meeting, I thought the problem was we were trying to get it to fall town meeting, so we had to move up that meeting, our
correct.
meeting, so
Right.
that we could get it to Selectmen and get it to fall town meeting.
And to try to get on the select board, the first meeting in September versus the second meeting in September.
So I think it would be good to meet in the, either next week or the week after. I'm gonna be doing the PowerPoint. So I think the main point of the agenda would be for me to kind of come in with, the base of, you know, the PowerPoint, get input, get, you know, and things like that.
That'd be great.
You know, come in with a draft that's not rough, but, you know, sorry, further along than that, but, you know, so we could try and get it to the next select board
And
meeting.
just refresh my memory. So for fall town meeting, we're trying to get what, money for a design or?
That was the ask, I think.
I think we wanted to present and have an ask for money, so the next time around, you know, we could at least have a shot at the spring town meeting of having some,
We have a really good
Plan.
estimate in terms of what it would cost to.
So an estimate at fall
Replace.
town meeting, so we would have to get a quote for design work?
Request it at the next meeting, so then the next committee that takes over
Can start
Yeah.
with it.
faster.
I think Christie was gonna come back to us with saying, like, this is, so here's a realistic timeline.
Okay.
If we can get on the warrant,
Mhm.
that was the big thing, is we were supposed to present the same night that they were
Right,
voting
close-
on the
yeah,
warrant. So
yeah.
we wanna get in the week before, or
Okay,
the 2 weeks before.
okay.
So, Brian, in the PowerPoint, are you just kind of highlighting the steps that led us to getting the restaurant with the tear down, basically?
Yeah, so my thought was, you know, I'm assuming this is gonna be something that's not just presented at the select board and then the town meeting, but it's gonna be something that people can go onto the website and see, so it's
And
gonna put,
reference, yeah.
you know, even the basics of, from the charge of the committee, the,
Content
um,
setting.
yeah,
Yeah.
the results of the
Survey.
survey,
Mhm.
and then talking about not only what our recommendation is, but I feel like a lot of times you get to town meeting and say, well, why didn't they think of this?
Mhm.
And actually say, we determined that we could not do this because there's just no parking. And you can't run golf and summer camps, you know, at the same time, you know, just things like that, and almost give like an FAQ of some of the things that we've discussed, why we may not have gone that way, or what prohibited it, you know, and the thought that $800,000 isn't even looking behind the walls, it's not, you know, spelling that out.
It's like the very bare minimum,
Right,
right? Okay.
kind of why we decided not to go with certain aspects,
Right.
Mhm.
and spell it out for everybody.
Okay.
So how does that work? So you would draft it, we'd all have to agree, because I don't know if we've all individually heard from each other on what the, even though we all understand what I think our goal would be. Is it just gonna be a flat-out recommendation and we agree on it as per the PowerPoint, and then the next step would be just to present, to the select board? Is the next meeting our agreement on whatever's officially being proposed?
I think so, yeah, because we'd have to just kind of decide at the next
Right.
meeting, like you said, what we want to say to the selectmen and how we're gonna say it. And then,
Yeah,
I think,
Okay,
I
let's-
think last time, I think Christie was saying that it would be very, very difficult to get multiple quotes and multiple, issues ready in such a short period of time for that town meeting, if I remember correctly.
I think, Matt, you do,
My dog.
I think you do remember correctly, but I think we also kind of pushed back and said, you know, why, we've got to try, because it's just, that, you know, I brought up the food trucks and all that because the number one, you know, or I don't know if it's a complaint, but the number one comment from people is like, great, now, you know, we're not going to have anything, you know, for 3-4 years.
Right.
You know, why didn't they let it stay open while they determined what we were going to do with the building? Like, these are all the things I'm hearing.
Right.
So we've
Thank
got to, you know, I think we owe it to everybody to act as quickly as possible, and if it means, and I don't know if this.
Good try.
I don't know if this technically can be done, but to ask for, you know, I always hear at a town meeting, a sum not to exceed. You know, let's ask for a sum not to exceed,
Right.
whatever we think it's gonna take to get a design to the point where we can then take it to town meeting for a vote to actually move forward.
Okay, maybe this is worth too putting on the next agenda, and I'm sure Christy will be here, and Ian, I feel like they can speak more to, Christy definitely will, about the timeline for town meeting, because I think the warrant has to be posted by a certain time and all that, so maybe we'll add that to the agenda as well.
Well, we said that, so we said the select board meets on the 26th or the 27th, that Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember which.
Yep.
I think we determined if we presented to the select board the meeting before that, they could have it on the warrant.
Exactly. So
Because-
The
it
12th.
pushes that up 2 weeks, so that's either the, I think
I think
it's
it's
the
the
12th or the
12th.
13th.
12th is a Tuesday. They don't have the meeting posted yet, but I would assume it's September 12th.
Okay,
Don't quote me on that.
so then we were trying to get everything done before the 12th.
Right.
Right,
Get to select board on the 12th.
right.
Brian, do you need any help with the PowerPoint? Is there a page I can?
I'll let you know.
Okay, if you wanted me to take one
I'll-
section or something. let me
Yeah, I'll
know.
definitely let you know, as I kind of piece it together.
Okay.
So when do we want to meet again?
I have the 16th. Is that right?
Well, I think now with, hold on.
Yeah, I have, like, next Wednesday is on my calendar.
I didn't have anything, but I'm on vacation, so I won't be here, but that's fine if
I
it
didn't
works.
have anything on.
I didn't have
anything
anything
on mine
past
either.
August 9th.
I just saw that. I'm
There's
like,
always
wait
a lot of
minute.
dates thrown around, so who knows?
That too, I don't know.
So we didn't plan anything for August. We were gonna wait to see what happened with DPW and then determine if we wanted to add another date in August. Otherwise, we were gonna wait until September, but
Yeah, because I think the
based
fall, the
off-
town meeting thing kind of now,
forces it up.
right.
So we should look at something over the
Else.
next week or two, whenever Brian can get a draft.
Well, why don't we, you want to do the 23rd, and then we can, then there's
I'll be out of
the
town.
30th, the 6th.
I'll be out of town the 23rd.
Do you want me to I can send out a poll again with a couple of dates, just to see, because we will need a quorum.
Yeah.
And so everyone can just be in front of their calendars and just make sure everyone can attend. So,
Because we can ask Ian and Christie too, so.
right, I think that
Right.
they're important that they're here.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
I mean, it's important that we're all here, but you know what I mean. So I'll
I think
throw
they'd
out a
be able
couple
to
of-
answer a lot of the technical
For
questions
sure,
about
yeah.
dates and
Absolutely.
timing and.
Okay, so I'll send that out tomorrow or the next day, and we'll figure out a day that works.
And see if we can get a date in August.
Yep, okay. And the agenda, it'll have, a town meeting discussion, but a lot of talk around the final deliverable to the select board, kind of running
Can I
through
ask a
that.
question? We're gonna ask Brian to bring a draft?
I will.
I think, yeah, that sounds like.
Great.
So, the next agenda then, review the draft physically, and then we'll also have a conversation around trying to get a recommendation to the select board on the September 12th meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
And maybe we should put on there a vote, that we vote for what our recommendation is. so
Yep.
then that-
Right,
that's
yeah,
on the
an
record.
actual verbiage
Yeah,
of the
say,
recommendation.
hey, this is what our recommendation is, we're all in agreement, or whatever.
Yep,
Okay,
and then let Christie know that, we're just looking to her to see, is there something, we can do to get it over to town meeting
okay.
in October. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
All right, very good.
Very good.
I think that was it, I lost the agenda.
yeah.
But that was it, so I think we just need a motion to adjourn,
A motion to
Second.
adjourn.
okay?
Second.
And then we just need to do roll call vote again.
White, yes?
O'Day, yes?
Yes.
Weitzman, yes?
Kirkland, yes?
Griffith, yes?
And a yes.
All right, we're adjourned.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Short and
Great.
sweet.
Thank you.